Hey everyone, have you ever wondered how an app on your phone, just crunches through thousands of bits of data like it's nothing? Well, a big part of that magic comes down to one of the most powerful ideas in programming, loops. Today, we're going to pull back the curtain and see how we can make computers do all the heavy lifting for us so we can focus on the cool, creative stuff. I mean, we've all been there, right? That feeling of doing the same boring task over and over again until your brain just kind of goes numb. Well, the good news is, in the world of coding, there is a fantastic way to escape that grind. Just picture this. Your teacher tells you to write your name 10 times. Ugh. You could grab a pen and just scribble it out, but man, that's so tedious. Now, what if you could just tell your computer, hey, write my name 10 times, and boom, it's done in a split second. That's the magic we're talking about. That's what loops do. They automate the boring stuff. And that leads us right to the star of our show today, the loop. It's basically the programmer's secret weapon for knocking out any repetitive job with like zero effort. So what exactly is a loop? Well, at its core, you can just think of it as a set of instructions that you put on repeat. You tell the computer what to do, and it just keeps on doing it until a very specific condition is met. It's almost like having a little robot that follows your orders perfectly until you give it the signal to stop. And you know what's funny? We actually use the logic of loops all the time in our daily lives, probably without even realizing it. Brushing your teeth? That's a loop you run every morning and night. Counting your steps when you're out for a walk? That's a loop. And singing the chorus of your favorite song over and over? Yep, that's a loop too. See? It's a really natural way of thinking. Okay, so when we get into Python, you're going to run into two main kinds of loops, the for loop and the while loop. And the main difference between them is actually super simple. You use a for loop when you know exactly how many times you want to repeat something. And you use a while loop when you're not quite sure how many times it'll take, but you do know the condition that will make it stop. All right, let's dive in and get to know our first type of loop, the for loop. This is your go-to tool when you need to repeat something a fixed number of times. Okay, check out this classic example right here. This tiny little piece of code is telling Python to print the numbers from 1 to 5. See how clean that is? On the left, you've got the code, and right next to it, the output it produces. It's a really simple but incredibly powerful way to generate a sequence of numbers. So how does this actually work? The secret is in that first line, for I in range 1, 6. Okay, so that little I, think of it like a temporary counting box. It's just there to hold the current number we're looking at. Then you have range 1, 6, which basically tells that little box, okay, I want you to count from 1 all the way up to but not including 6. And for every single number in that count, the command print I gets to run. It's kind of like a conveyor belt, where each number comes along, gets processed, and then the next one comes up. All right, now that we've met the for loop, let's go meet its cousin, the while loop. This is the one you're going to reach for when you don't know exactly how many times you need to repeat something. And that's the big question, right? What if your program needs to just keep doing something until, say, a user clicks a button? Or maybe it needs to wait until a sensor reading changes. You have no idea if that's going to take 5 seconds or 5 minutes. That is exactly where the while loop comes in to save the day. Now, check this out. We're getting the exact same result as our for loop, printing the numbers 1 to 5, but we're going about it in a totally different way. See, first we set up a count variable before the loop even starts. Then the while loop's condition says, hey, keep running as long as count is less than or equal to 5. But here's the most important part. Right inside the loop, we add 1 to count each time. That little line is what makes sure we're actually making progress and will eventually, stop the loop. And this brings us to the single most important golden rule of while loops. You absolutely, positively have to make sure that the condition can, at some point, become false. If you forget this, you create something called an infinite loop, and your program will just get stuck running that same code forever. Let's really break down why this is so critical. On the left, we've got a classic infinite loop. The code prints the number 1, but then that's it. Since the value of count never ever changes, the condition count less than 5 is always true. It's like a runaway train with no brakes. But look at the right side. All we did was add that one little line, count plus equals 1. This simple fix makes sure the count goes up with each pass, and eventually the loop will finish exactly when we want it to. A tiny change, but it makes all the difference. Okay, so loops are already super powerful, right? But sometimes you need even more control. You might need to bail out of a loop early, or maybe just skip over one particular turn. And for that, we have two really handy keywords: break and continue. First up, let's talk about break. The best way to think about this is as an emergency stop button for your loop. In this example, our loop is supposed to go through numbers from 1 to 9, but we've put in a little check. If I equals 5, break. This tells the loop, the second you see the number 5, just stop. Eject. We're done here. And if you look at the output, that's exactly what happens. It prints 1, 2, 3, 4, and then hits the brakes. Next, we've got continue. Now, unlike break, continue doesn't kill the whole loop. Instead, it's more like saying, skip this round. It just skips the current turn and jumps right to the next one. So in this example, when I is equal to 3, that continue statement gets triggered. This tells the loop to totally ignore the print I command for this one time and just move on to the next number. And the result? We get all the numbers from 1 to 5 except for poor old number 3, which gets skipped. Let's walk through that logic together step by step, just so it's crystal clear. Okay, so the loop is running, I is 2. The condition I equals 3 is false, so it goes ahead and prints 2. No problem. Now, on the next turn, I becomes 3. Aha! Now the condition is true. Continue gets triggered, and Python immediately skips everything else left in the loop for this turn and jumps right back to the top to start the next round, where I will be 4. So, after all that, for loops, while loops, breaking, continuing, what's the big takeaway here? Well, it really all boils down to one simple idea: working smart, not hard. Let's just quickly recap the most important things to remember. First, loops are all about automating repetition. Simple as that. Use a for loop when you know how many times you need to go, and a while loop when you don't. If you need to stop everything and get out, that's what break is for. And if you just want to skip a single turn, you'll use continue. And I know I've said it before, but it's that important. Always make sure your while loop has an exit strategy. And really, that's what this is all about in the end. Loops are such a fundamental tool because they let you hand off all the boring, repetitive tasks to the computer. That frees up your brain power to tackle the bigger, more interesting problems. They truly help you, and by extension Python, to work smart, not hard.